Lesson 2, topic conditional statements. I can write and use conditional statements. First off, some vocabulary here. A logical or conditional statement is a logical statement that has two parts, a hypothesis and a conclusion. If-then form of a conditional statement, the hypothesis follows the if. So if it is raining would be the hypothesis. And then the conclusion follows the then. So again, if it is raining would be your hypothesis, and then there are clouds in the sky would be your conclusion. Negation is the opposite of the original statement. So if the statement is the ball is red, the opposite would be the ball is not red. So negation adds a negative term, which is like a not. If the statement is the cat is not black, so if it already has a not, the negation would be the opposite of then that the cat is black. So it would take away the not. So it can go in either direction. The converse of a statement is exchanging the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if we were to look back up to this statement here, this is an if-then form. So if it is raining, then there are clouds in the sky. The converse of that would be if there are clouds in the sky, then it is raining. We switch the two pieces around. The inverse is when you negate both the hypothesis and the conclusion. So if we come back up here to this example, the inverse of this would be if it is not raining, then there are not clouds in the sky. And then the contrapositive is first write the converse, so exchange that hypothesis and conclusion around, and then you would negate both the hypothesis and the conclusion. So the contrapositive of this statement would be if there are not clouds in the sky, then it is not raining. So let's practice this by writing 4 related conditional statements. So our statement is guitar players are musicians. So we want to write that in an if-then form. So really the if is just kind of like the first part of the statement, and then the then would be the last part of the statement. So to write that as an if-then would be if you are a guitar player, then you are a musician. And yes, we do need to write out all the words and make sure we write it in proper grammatical form. So if you are a guitar player, then you are a musician, that would be a true statement. So then if we go to the next one, the converse, so remember the converse just flip-flops that if and the then part. So it's going to flip those two pieces around, and it's going to be if you are a musician, then you are a guitar player. Well, if you are a musician, it doesn't always mean that you're a guitar player. You could be a drummer, you could be a saxophonist, you could play the flute, flautist. So that would be a false statement, and that's okay. Sometimes these statements are false. We just are given to write them and declare if they're true or false. The inverse, remember, is the negation of the if-then. So negate that. So to negate that, we just add those nots. If you are not a guitar player, then you are not a musician. And that one would also be false, because if you are not a guitar player, that doesn't mean you're not a musician, because you could be a drummer, you could be a saxophonist, again, all those other examples of ways you can be a musician without being a guitar player. And then that contrapositive, if you remember, is negating your converse. So if we take the converse and we negate that, we get the contrapositive. So the contrapositive then is if you are not a musician, then you are not a guitar player. And that would be true, because if you're not a musician, that means you don't play any musical instruments. So then you would not be a guitar player. All right, so that is how you write conditional statements. Biconditional statement. A biconditional statement is a statement that contains if and only if. So this is a statement you can write when a conditional statement and its converse are both true. So the if-then form and the converse are both true. You can write them as a single biconditional statement. So we're going to practice this with this statement here. If an angle is a right angle, then its measure is 90 degrees. So if an angle is a right angle, then its measure is 90 degrees. Well, that's the definition of a right angle, so that is true. So if you have a right angle, then you know for sure it's a 90-degree angle. So now let's write that converse. Remember the converse, which is the if and the then part. So we're going to flip-flop these two pieces around. And we're going to make that if an angle measures 90 degrees, then it is a right angle. So that is also true because both pieces are true. If an angle measures 90 degrees, then it's a right angle. There's no other way that we classify an angle that measures 90 degrees. So then to write the biconditional statement, we're going to write it in the order of the if-then. So we're going to go to the if-then. And we're going to take out the if, we're going to take out the then, and we're going to write a biconditional statement with if and only if in the middle. So as you can see, it's going to look like this. An angle is a right angle. So we took this piece right here. An angle is a right angle, but we took away that if. Put if and only if in the middle and got rid of the then. The angle measures 90 degrees. So we took that it out of it and replaced it with the angle. So we're being more specific. And then that is true because it goes both ways. So that is all the notes I have for you for lesson 2. Go ahead and complete your practice.